Does it feel like it's been 15 years?
Well, it's 15 years since we started, which is crazy. It's 8 years since we finished. And I've seen a lot of these people here and there, so it definitely feels weird.
Has there ever been a gathering of your group this large before today?
No.
Not
A reunion?
Since the show ended, no.
And how is that so far?
But we haven't seen everybody yet. I think tonight on stage with all the people who are here is going to be super. That's when we're going to start punching. And I think it's going to be super emotional. Just thinking about it has already made me feel emotional. It's a big deal.
Anybody else on 15 years, whether it feels like it, more or less? Any reflection on that, Amy?
Well, I've been in editing, re-editing, because I've been helping put together some stuff for the thing tonight, a tribute to Ed Herrmann, and I'm looking at footage from like you. It's like, and they're kids, like they're like fresh. I think we got you at the bus station, like literally, like one of them's coming off the bus. Him, the tall one, get over here. So it's like that's so amazing to me because I feel like I haven't changed at all. I'm just as delightful and as charming and youthful and bitter as I was then. But it was like it's interesting going back and watching how they've turned into like fine young people. And of course, Lauren is exactly the same. And it's very irritating.
The women look exactly the same, or better.
We'll just say that.
I ran into Danny Strong downstairs.
Yeah.
And he was always this great actor, and he showed up, and everybody would have a great time with Danny Strong, and he was an actor.
Oh yeah.
I ran into him downstairs, and I said, "Danny Strong, how are you, man? I haven't seen you in a while." And I go, "What are you doing? You gonna be at the panel?" And he said, well, I'm doing the Empire thing. And I go, "Oh, so you're on that show?" He goes, "No, I created it."
Really? He's had
he's
incredible
had
success as a writer.
As a writer, he's just winning awards all over the place, getting nominated for things. So.
He was writing his first thing on the Gilmore Girls set.
Right,
he wrote the Hanging Chad movie.
Talking to Dan and I about I'm thinking about being a writer, and we're like, "Sure, sweetie, be a writer. Go be a writer." And I'm like, "No, don't be that successful. Don't take my word that much." Like he's just like run with it. But it's great. It's great that I don't think anybody despises anybody. Like we all sort of like kind of like each other.
Why is that surprising?
I don't know. Aren't people supposed to? After all those years, don't you like if I ever see that person in a bar, I'm gonna finally tell them. I don't know, but it's sort of. I'm like really looking forward to tonight.
I'm looking forward to it too.
Yeah.
So this show came along in a different time, and now we're reality shows on steroids, and The Voice, and all that fills our prime time. Do you think a show like this could succeed today?
Yes. Yes,
Kelly?
Absolutely. We're desperate for good television. Especially we older folks who don't like to watch things on iPhones and computers, and we want to sit down and turn on the television set and see some quality. And it's really hard to find. It's almost impossible to find.
And there's a thing out there right now which is about every idea having to be noisy. That's the buzzword, and it makes me upset. As you're saying, it's not what I'm interested in, and we are.
And now with this new life that Gilmore Girls has, it's not just my generation and their generation, because they're younger than I am. It's the kids. It's the new teenagers who are watching Gilmore Girls, which was very current in many ways at the time, and they're loving it. They're loving this show. So yeah, there's room for this show and about 8 more.
Do you think so though? Because the premise is simple, the storytelling is amazing.
Great writing.
It's great writing. That's what some would argue it's all about. But the market does not seem there for a simple story with great writing.
If they saw it, they'd like it.
Yeah.
They just don't
If you build it, they will come.
But it's also, as much as there's reality television and everybody's voted on off an island, this is also an age of Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and content is king right now. And I want to say to anybody who's at home, drunk at 11 o'clock in the morning because it's not working out for them, they're looking for content right now. They're hungry for stories and storytelling. And And while I don't know that Gilmore could exist in the exact same fashion that it did in terms of like network speak has sort of changed a bit, content right now and characters and stories, they are, they're taking back the airwaves. And I do feel like it would be a harder sell than it was back then. You know, then I sold it off of a line, off of it's mother and daughter and they're like friends. You know, it was exhausting. And everyone wanted to go to lunch. So they were sort of like, oh, that's great, let's just buy it and go get soup. So they all went to get soup and then I wrote the show. But I think now it would be a harder sell, but I think there would still be a world for it. It was a total fluke. I optioned an article from a LA Times magazine. It was this whole thing. I had this pitch and whole thing performed. I did voices. It was a big extravaganza. And like halfway through, I realized that like nobody cared what I was talking about, and they were all sort of looking at their watches or it wasn't device time yet, but they were thinking about, wouldn't it be great if I had a device that I could stare at instead of listening to this person? And then so I sort of wrapped it up quickly and said, I've got a couple of other things, and I like sort of pulled a couple of things out of my, and then the last thing I said was, and then there's this idea of like a mother and daughter, and they're more like friends than mother-daughter, and they all perked up and literally said, great, we'll buy that, and then they went to lunch. And that was it, and I walked out of there, and I turned to my manager at the time, and I said, that's all I got. Like, I don't know what the show is. Like, I don't know. And he's like, well, you should figure it out. And my husband and I were going on vacation. It was a long thing, Mark Twain's house. We wanted decorating ideas, don't ask. And so we went to Connecticut and we stayed in this beautiful inn. And I'm like, what if I said it in an inn? Like literally, like the whole thing happened over like, I pitched it on like a Friday and like Saturday and Sunday. And I actually have a scene, which I think is the Suki scene with you on the peach scene that you had to lick a spoon. And I wrote it on the paper in the hotel, and I still have it, and that went in the pilot, and now I can pay my bills.
So it was born of desperation.
Well, it was just like, it was an idea, but it wasn't, you don't think that you can go into a room full of people and say, I don't really have much, I only have this. Like there's folklore about like, the Charles brothers went in and said, we want to do something about a bar, and they went, okay, which may have happened or may not have happened, I don't know. But usually they want more than that. But it was just, there was something about that concept of
it was very fresh. It was not, it wasn't out there.
What attracted you to the role, Lauren?
I felt like I knew what she meant when she wrote it down. You know what I mean? We'd never met. And I got this feeling, which I've had very few times as an actor, which is, ooh, that's mine. I know how to do that. And this is coming, like, we had a kind of a weird mind meld. And at the time, it was a pilot presentation. It wasn't a whole pilot, which is not your favorite thing as an actor because it tends to mean it's less of a sure thing than even a pilot, which is not a sure thing. And it was playing a mom, which the representatives, at the time were, you worried about that I was, I think, Alexis's age when I started this show, and nobody wanted me to play mom. The network was still kind of an unknown.
They were called a weblet at the time.
So there were so many things that didn't make it like the dream package, except for the language, which just jumped off the page.
The language or the writing?
I mean, to me, I think of it as language because I'll be speaking it, but of course, I mean the writing. It was just the sound of the dialogue was very specific and fresh.
And speaking of just a trial run, what you're saying it's a pilot, you were promised what, a one-time thing?
I got the job as a guest star.
But you had an inkling that it was a chemistry test.
I did. I thought, well, the real audition is going to be in Toronto on the set, and the chemistry was evident. And they offered 2 shows after that, and we said no. Then they offered 4, we said no, and then they said, how about 6 years? We said, all right, we'll do that. So it worked out well.
The moral is hold out for what you want.
Well, but had you not taken the shot, I don't know. It's like a combination, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, but parroting what Lauren said, same thing. When I read that script, tuning fork went off, and then when I met Amy, same thing.
Because I was holding a tuning fork at the time, and it just went off. So
You heard it, Scott. I think it's a sign. I guess I got the job. Nobody was there with a tuning fork. So. It's mine.
Emily and Jared, like the pace, the writing, how much you guys crammed into an hour of television time.
yeah, sorry about that.
What was that challenge like?
For me, it was my first real job.
You didn't know.
You're welcome. Anytime.
So I didn't have much to gauge it off of. It became my gauge. And I was much like Scott, where I think I got offered 2 episodes, and then
Yeah.
I didn't say no. I was like, sure, I'll take one. I'll walk by in the back.
You were about to be a college freshman.
I was enrolled at UT Austin, and I drove out between my graduation of high school and my day 1 of freshman year of college. And I quit UT Austin to do Gilmore Girls.
We derailed 2 college educations here,
Yeah.
which I'm very
One at a
proud
time.
of. Thank you.
Girl, their endowment is suffering. But for me, it was. Luckily, I was very excited, and I wasn't working the same amount of time they were. So I had time to learn my dialogue, and I still had a ton of dialogue. Yeah, I mean, we were shooting.
It was rough.
It was a lot. I remember when we drove off set at the end of the day, and it was 4 a.m. They'd be like, "Oh, yeah, you probably come from Gilmore Girls, right?" I was like, "Yeah," and they didn't know I was. It hadn't aired or anything, but they knew because of the length of the days what show I was coming from before I drove home. So
It was like a contest between us and West Wing, who had like the worst hours.
Really?
it was a hell of a boot camp for me.
Yeah.
And Kelly, you had all this experience, right? So you basically came from the other side of it.
Well, I mean, I was a stage actor primarily. I'd done television, I'd done guest things, tons of pilots that didn't sell, which was fine with me in those days because the whole idea was you did your work in New York because you were a New Yorker, and then you get a pilot, and because they pay you well, that you hope it didn't sell because they had a hold on you, but you didn't care if they had a hold on you because you were back in New York doing your play. The one thing about the dialogue, I mean, besides loving the character, the same thing, I remember that year, The Sopranos was very big. So every pilot I saw, every script I read was all some like corny sort of Italian, sitcom thingy. And then I'm reading this, and I'm going,
That's what they took from The Sopranos.
That's exactly what they did. And then I start reading this, and this one's making me laugh. This one is like sophisticated and funny and sharp. And I'm reading and I'm going, this can't be a half hour. And I look at the script. I'm going, that's got to be an hour. Anyway, I kept reading. I love the character. I love the dialogue. I loved the characters, all of the characters, my character. And as far as talking fast, I mean, that was a gift to me because how many times through my acting career I was told to slow down, slow down. And I get this, and I go, oh, good, you can go fast. Yeah, let's go. So I was thrilled, absolutely thrilled.
And Alexis, you stepped into this, a newbie, an unknown, into a starring role. Take me back to what that was like. I mean, obviously it had to be the chance of a lifetime, but what was really going through your head?
Yeah, it was. I was brand new to the acting profession. I had decided to pursue acting like 6 months before I think the show got picked up. So it was really overwhelming and really lucky. A complete shock to the system because it went on for so long and I had to learn so much so fast. But I had some wonderful mentors, of course, so I got to learn just firsthand by watching them mostly. And I just learned by doing. So it was
Did
great.
the two of you hit it off immediately? Was it a good connection, or was it a
think so.
growing?
I think so.
I remember, I tell this story, and I'm not at all, I remember because Alexis hadn't really, there was so much to take in, and then the lines, and the camera work on that show is very specific, and we really had to hit certain marks, which, especially when you start out, is just a foreign concept because you're thinking about your motivation, you're working as an actor, and so to have to land on one spot is just like,
Yeah, that was the first
blows
thing
your
I had to
mind.
learn.
So
That was
I
day
remember
one.
a lot of times just kind of grabbing her and like I'd kind of
putting me on
lead
my
her
mark.
arm, and so some, in the beginning people are like, you have such great chemistry, and I'm like, I'm mauling her, that's why. Joined the really like, holding each other,
That's so funny.
but she of course just had such a just like a natural gift, but yeah, we in all that time, and it was could be stressful, at times we just always got along, and I just so appreciated having such a great partner.
Me too.
Amy, you had no hesitation taking such a gamble on her?
Yeah. What were you
You
thinking?
know, well, when you put something together, you're looking to do. There was something about this. Everything about this was a little different. I came from Half Hour. Roseanne was my first job. I was steeped in sitcom, and I did an hour long because Suzanne Daniel, who was head of the WB at the time, kept saying, "I want you to write me a funny hour long," and I'm like, "What is that? Just more pages?" Like I literally was like, "Okay." So I was new. In my mind, I knew what it should be, but because it hadn't actually been out there, like I knew the page count, the long page count was correct, even though people were saying you got to cut, you got to cut. I was like, we're going to be short if I cut. So when Alexis came in, it was one of those things where, like, first of all, she was sick when she came in an audition. She was sick and kind of annoyed to be there, and I was like, she hates us. That's perfect. That's perfect. Because it was not like there was something. It was so unpolished. It was so like real and like. The quality was like, oh, you know exactly who the person is, as opposed to somebody who'd come in and like is putting on an act or something like that. It was very, just something about that. I don't know which way to face. Worked beautifully because Rory in her world was very sort of open and unvarnished, and sort of like Lorelai had done so much to protect her so that she could just sort of grow up however she wanted to grow up, that you needed that quality. Plus, she was adorable and has her and learned to be her own sort of comedian in her own way, where we're like, oh, look at what Alexis. Okay, I got to write that more. And the two of them together, there was something about the yin and yang of them from the first time I saw them together that I'm like, this is going to work. I don't know that we're going to stay on the air, but this works. We're not going to fail because we're wrong. We're going to fail because someone didn't give us a commercial.
But we didn't do a chemistry read or anything. We just we met on set.
Yeah.
Like we met there.
Wow.
Could have gone way worse.
Yeah, it could have been a disaster.
Yeah.
So while Rory and Lorelai are joined at the hip, your relationship with your own mom in this series is arguably, more challenged. Do you think that the Lorelai-Emily relationship is more reflective of real life?
I don't know. I get a lot of people who say both, who say, I'm just like Rory and Lorelai, or, I'm just like Lorelai and Emily. I think to have those two dynamics was perfect because it reflects, love, and it reflects tension, and this is at its core a family story. And I just had so much fun sparring with Emily that I guess I don't think of it as real, as negative or any more realistic than anything. It just was, they're different people, and this is how they express their love, is through conflict.
Okay, so let me put it this way. The relationship between the two of you. I have 3 teenage daughters right now, okay?
It is not like that.
And they're the Netflix generation, so they've watched the whole thing on Netflix, not in real time. And I think part of the reason they hate me is because they've seen this really great relationship, and I'm wondering if you've heard from other moms like, oh my
that's
God,
frustrating.
I can't live. Well, just think I can't live up to that. I don't know how to do that. And
But
as the daughter,
Emily says that in one episode. She says it to you, remember? And you were talking about being friends, and I was sitting there, we were sitting on at the foot of the bed, and I was really lamenting it because I said, that's not the way I was raised. I was not raised to be a friend of my daughter. That way, I don't understand how to do that. And because I saw their relationship and I wanted to have it, but I couldn't do it.
I think it's realistic to me in terms of the absence, or the sort of absence of her father, and also how young. The whole premise of the show is I had her at 16. So that's not a normal mother-daughter, or that's not a ideal, let's say, mother-daughter age difference and or situation. They have weathered, before we meet them, they've weathered quite a bit, just the two of them. And my father wasn't that young, but my dad and I were a team like that. So I really understood that in terms of my experience. I had a dad who I was very close with, partially out of necessity, and I think it does create a bond that's more has a more friend dynamic to it. I don't think it's ideal, you know, and yes, it's hard to live up to.
Have you heard from fans like, wow, I wish?
Yeah.
Or have
Yeah.
moms
But that's
or
part of the wish
like
fulfillment of the
Right.
show is
Of
what
course,
if?
it's
What if you
aspirational.
lived in this town where, you know, getting a traffic light was a major event? What if you were late to the town meeting again and everyone was going to know about it? You know, what if? I mean, there was a real comfort aspect to living in this world that, you know, wasn't gritty reality, and that was part of the joy of it was, you know, it's real, but it's also a break from the more sort of real world, I guess.
Alexis, did you hear from daughters or mothers, or what kind of comments were relayed to you about this relationship, if you can recall, or if people still come up to you and say, hey, I think, or I wish?
Both, yeah. I both mothers and daughters have come up to me and said they wish they had that kind of relationship, or that they do. And then a lot of moms would tell me about how much their daughters are reading because of the show, and then their kids started going to college, so I would hear about my daughter's going to Yale, my daughter's going to Harvard, and it really gets under people's skin, and it's been so long now that we've had all these different, there have been all these different landmarks with the different generations that have watched the show.
Yeah, and you've lost some of your own beloved.
Oh,
We lost it.
with our Edward, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
That was
That's huge. That's it.
That was pretty big.
Huge loss.
That's a big loss. He's
What did he bring to the set?
Oh my God. Besides being a consummate professional with one of the greatest voices ever, he was fun. He was a very loving man. I mean, he liked to have fun, but he was highly intelligent, and so he was always, I mean, I would see him take books off the set while we were
kinda
waiting
knew
for
everything.
camera change. He'd just pull a book out that was just like a set book, probably written in 1918, and he'd sit down and read the book. But he loved to play. He mentored Alexis. He really took her under his wing because he realized she was new to the business, and he wanted to help her. He was a doll. I mean, he was kind of my buddy. I mean, you know, because we were the two New York actors, and the only two that always got to set on time. And
Now here we go.
I have a prior engagement.
It was good seeing you.
no, we just, he was a doll. He was a doll. I said, somebody interviewed me after his passing, and I found the right phrase because he would have liked it too. It comes from, I don't know, this 15th century, a hail fellow well met. That was it. He was just a doll.
and he had a you know, he was a good guy to have a martini with, and
Yeah.
you know, he had a mouth on him sometimes, so he had a saucy side to his sophistication. He was just he was just amazing, and a big presence, and a big booming, you know, person around, and it was just it's just that he's not here. It's just, I know it's still like kind of freaking me out, but he was the only person we ever wanted for Richard, and I thought, well, I'm certainly not going to get Ed Herrmann to come do a WB show. It's not going to happen. And then they said, okay, well, he'll come in and meet with you. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Ed. He's coming in. And he sat down, and I thought, okay, well, obviously I don't need to hear him say the words. So he's not going to read. And so we talked for a minute. And he goes, so do you want me to read? And I'm like, So he read the scene, and I'm like, I was literally like, don't let him leave, because if he leaves, he won't come back. Did I imagine it? Was he not there? It was just a very, I don't know. It was a coup, and he was the patriarch that we needed to be that Gilmore guy.
I want to talk a little more about the writing. The internet is filled with mashups of the pop culture references. Scott, I mean, was that at the time, was that something that kind of, did they all slide by you? Were people looking them up? Was it something you kept track of? Was it noticed at the time?
I didn't really need to keep track of it. People would come up and remind me and repeat the dialogue that I had just, and they would actually think I drank a lot of coffee and ordered coffee from me, and that they'd play out their little fantasies there right in front of me, and it was it's kind of heartwarming. No, I didn't, it all, I think, took us all by surprise that it became so entrenched in popular culture to the point where people were repeating scenes to you. I was at a party once, and this guy and his wife came up to me and did a whole scene in front of me, a Gilmore Girls scene from the pilot. Said, "What do you think?" And I think it's great. You should go film it. So it was a little strange.
Did you know a lot of the references? Did you have to look some of them up? Were you aware?
I would have to look them up often and just keep up with, the new script that came out, and there'd be, 8 things I had to look up.
Were you trying to slip as many as you could in there? Were you drinking when you were writing? I mean, what was going on?
Now wait a minute, this is on television. Yes, of course, to all of that. No, it wasn't a thing. Nothing was intentional in terms of like, we're trying to be the pop culture show like that. I think when you set out to do that, you're just going to fail. It was just stuff that made me laugh. It was things that made me laugh, and a lot of the references were there because these were 2 women who read, who watched movies, who were very engaged in what was going around. They were engaged in politics. I wanted them to be bright women who knew what the hell was going on outside their door and read newspapers and magazines and enjoyed trash as well as high culture. And to convey that, I think they would have that stuff at, Lorelai, what her mind was, what I loved about Lorelai, she was this person who, and what drove Emily crazy was, she was so smart and so bright and so sharp. Like, all Emily saw is what could have been, what could have been, what could have been. And yet, what Lorelai did and what she created and what she did for Rory is so big. And Emily couldn't see that because all she could see was, but you were so smart, you were so bright, you could have been a doctor, you could have been the Mayo Clinic, they would have changed it would have been the Lorelai Clinic. And it was like, I love the idea that, like, yes, maybe life didn't throw you the right, direction, but if you've got the smarts and you're sharp, you're gonna figure it out and you're gonna make something that's right for you. And I think that that's what she did. That kind of woman, to me, she's going to have this stuff at her fingertips. So it wasn't intentional in terms of I want to be really cool and hip. It was in terms of I think that's what these women think about, talk about. That's how they engage in life.
So your characters are so beloved by your fans, and you must know that strolling around Austin here. What has the show been off, 7 or 8 years? And I'm sure people are still treating you like rock stars. They want to be like you. Could each of you go through and just tell me how you think you are or are not like your character? I think fans would find that answer interesting. Jared, you want to go first?
Sure.
On the spot.
I think I was very much like the early Dean. I think I was probably similar with Alexa's audition story. I was fresh off the boat, and so I came in and I kind of was this fresh out of San Antonio via Austin. Like, my goal in life was to, like, I hope to live in Austin someday. I didn't think I'd go to a foreign country. My parents didn't have their passport until I flew them to Australia, like when I was 21 or something. So I had a very simple kind of life and upbringing. My mother's a teacher, my father's an accountant. And so I think I came in and was kind of like just this guy who I guess was very believable as a small town guy, though I wasn't from a small town, I was from San Antonio. But I sort of had simple wants and needs and the simple life. Talking earlier about when Kelly said that it would be picked up today, I think the show, though simple, the best stories are sort of based in simplicity, and it's a family story, and it's about love lost and what could have been. I think those stories can go anywhere, so I do think it would be very relevant still today. But I think the best I can kind of come to terms with is certainly who Jared was at age 17 when I got hired was very much who Dean was circa season 1.
I agree.
Dean had some stuff going on later.
But Dean was at the core a great guy. Like, I wanted her to have a great first boyfriend. I didn't want her to have a crappy first boyfriend. I wanted that first boyfriend to be the kind of boyfriend that you're literally going to measure every other guy in your life against, which is where we girls, well, and we can go very wrong then, because you're like, well, they're not as nice as my first boyfriend, and it's like, yeah, but you were 15. So and Jared was this great, strong, I mean, obviously gorgeous, but whatever. Just really solid, great guy that I think you would always believe he's going to protect and take care of, even at a young age, because you don't want to say those things about characters. They have to be that. and he was that, and it was a very fortunate for me that he did not pursue college. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Kelly.
As far as my being like my character,
Yes, or
I'm
not.
nothing like that character. No, that's not who I am. I mean, I have fun playing women like that because I really don't like them very much, and so the more obnoxious I can make them, it's sort of like you do look like that, you do sound like that, you know. So we would never have been friends, ever, ever, ever. But they're always great fun to play. So no. I don't think I am, do you?
No, Kelly's the most warm,
Kelly's
loving.
a broad.
I'm the most warm, loving broad.
but it's a great combination because she's a warm, loving broad. It's like she was out with us last night, you know, hanging out and having a great time, and then I would say to me the only similarity is you have strong opinions.
Oh, yeah. And a big mouth.
But you know, in a loving way. In Emily, you know, had less love and more bite.
Well, Emily was just, when you play a character like that, and I play a lot, for some reason I'm kind of locked into that now.
Voice.
You have to kind
voice,
of justify
great
this unkindness. I mean, I was surprised that so many people have come up to me and said, but her vulnerability, I'm going, huh, really? Emily?
Because it's your essential kindness.
You have to find out why, and you have to justify the behavior. Where it's not written, she's certainly not going to explain herself. So it really comes from, I decided early on, Emily is rather insecure, and if she does not have that status quo, she does not have that well, here we're in Texas, she does not have that corral to stay inside. That's a safe place, the whole social structure and her friends and the country club and the thing, and that's why she was humiliating to me. And if she doesn't have that, she's wallowing, she doesn't know what to do. So all of that severity comes from an insecurity, because those are the rules, and that's the way things work.
And Emily was deeply wounded.
Oh yeah.
Deeply, deeply wounded, and I think that for whatever Emily did, or what Emily perceived that or does to Lorelai, I think if you're a mother, and I'm not a mother, but I'm going to say this like I know, you're going to look at what happened, and you're going to feel for her that her only daughter gets pregnant and then leaves. She has no access. Her only daughter said to her, the whole world that you've put out on a platter for me, I don't want that. I don't want the comfort and the privilege, and I'm going to take your granddaughter away. Now, that's what Lorelai had to do in her mind to survive, but what a heartbreaking thing to have to, I mean, for me, I love Emily, and I feel like everything Emily does, I'm like I got to give her a pass, because that's something that how do you get over that?
How are you like Rory? Or not? Or both?
Well, I think that Rory is really a character who is shaped by her surroundings and the people in her life. And so I think that when I first started out in the role, I was probably similar to the character in the sense that I had a lot of opportunities. I had, every opportunity, loving people in my life who'd raised me, and I was, finding my way amongst all those opportunities. So but then from there, I think Rory's really shaped by this relationship between her mother and her grandmother, because there are wounds there, and Rory's brand new. She's just kind of fielding, the different emotional information she gets from her mother, and shaping her own worldview based on that, really, because they're so close. It's really just the two of them. So she's very much her mother's daughter. She's not exposed to the whole world because she's also very focused on academia. So that's her world. That's her whole
I would say
universe.
innocent and vulnerable sometimes, would you?
My character?
No, you.
Me?
I would argue that the character was innocent and vulnerable often. Would you say you were that way, maybe even just coming in?
I think, certainly vulnerable at the beginning, because it was my first job. But she also has a sort of sturdiness and a strength that she probably gets from her, grandmother and her mother, that I also have, that I think counterbalances any of that. I mean, I probably did seem that way, certainly compared to all the other TV shows on at the time and now. I mean, but that's really what I liked about the character, that she was so different. You know, I never really cared about doing what everybody else was doing, you know? Like, in fact, if there was an opportunity to do the opposite, I thought that was a good idea.
This reminds me, for some reason, I was thinking about this the other day. There was a Vanity Fair article you did with a bunch of other, like, it was like young Hollywood, and one of the questions they asked every single one of them was how many Juicy Couture sweatsuits they owned, and which was like the hot hip thing to have at the time, and every single person was like 2, 3, 5, 7, and Alexis was the only one who said none. I don't own a Juicy Couture sweatsuit, and I just thought like, it's such a small thing, but to be so young and to be an actress and to be in this time, and like, that to me is a kind of Rory, but that's a you. That's just like, you were never engaged or interested in kind of that brand of fitting in, and I think that is part of the reason that character really sparked people.
We all want to think that that's who you are.
I had a friend the other day who'd never seen the show. How good a friend are they, really? And he said, "Oh, I saw the show, and it's just you talking." And I thought, first of all, the blood, sweat, and tears that went into memorizing that language, because Amy is, you know, bosses are all different. Some writers don't mind if you take a little liberty. Some do. And so there was no improvisation, but there was something about the way she writes that has this kind of bubbly feeling, as if it's just coming off the top of your head. And that is a testament to how smart Amy is, because not all writers, especially not all writers are also book smart. So those pop culture references come out of how much she reads and all the things she's interested in. Growing up, I was a total Rory. I was a reader, and that's how I first came to acting, was reading and imagining stories, and then but I am very language driven. My sense of humor is similar, and I am similarly, I think, deflective, and I love a good turn of phrase. So that's kind of the answer. The end. It's not like I've been doing this for years or anything.
Is so incredibly verbal and smart and sharp, and by the way, a really good writer herself.
Thank you.
Just need to say. An author. Yeah, totally. I mean, really, really good. And as a writer, you latch on to voices. You have to. And you have a picture in your mind, and when Lauren walked in and read the words, it's like, it's such a relief, because it's like, I can write for this girl. And I actually felt bad sometimes, because I knew Lauren can kind of do whatever I threw at her. So sometimes I really threw a lot at her, and I would look at these scripts at the end of the day, I'm kind of like, is this cruel or is this nice?
It was only cruel when we got it at like 6:45 in the morning, when like the rewrites came in, and you'd be like, are you kidding me?
That was a little cruel. But it was sort of like, I sort of felt like, well, if she couldn't do it, you know, like, well, if you sucked more. It was just, then I would not give you this.
I always say the worst thing I ever did was show Amy that I could memorize quickly.
Yeah, that was bad.
Because I was definitely a kid who like recited poetry at like my dad's dinner parties. Aren't you sorry you weren't a guest? I would do like Casey at the Bat and stuff, and then it just came.
Oh my God.
Jabberwocky, anyone? So yeah, that ended up, it's a blessing and a curse.
How am I?
You kind of had this.
Luke,
like,
you're doing it right now.
Luke, I've had
like
too
a
much time to think about
chill
this, and that's not a good thing. Luke cannot exist in the real world. There can't be that guy. Okay.
Oh, don't say that.
But when I read the pilot, I thought, you know, I went back to my relationship with my dad, and okay. Had too much time to think about that. It was a chance to play my father as if he weren't the super educated, suave, sophisticated man that he was, who hadn't left when I needed him the most, creating this giant void in my life. And when I read that, and that's what I meant by the tuning fork, I went, aha, that's it, I get this guy. Because for a couple of years there, I was that guy.
So was it a gift?
It absolutely was a gift, because I got to work through a lot of that stuff. I got to re-examine my own relationship with my father and become closer with him as a result. You didn't know that. I never told you that.
I did not know that. I'm sorry.
So that,
or you're welcome. I don't know.
so that before he died, everybody felt okay, because people didn't feel okay for a long time.
You're lucky you had resolution.
Absolutely. And isn't it strange how it comes? You know, I walked into a room and my life changed. And, but Luke cannot exist in the real world.
What do you mean?
There,
Yeah, what does that
He can't be so.
He-
There can't be such a great guy. Wait, I'm having issues.
No, those aspects, yes.
You're okay.
But to be so long suffering and
What
to
do you
tolerate so much.
From Lorelai? She's speaking of gifts.
So, yeah, from wanting to that level, to that depth, to that degree. I mean, I certainly wouldn't have waited that long. I mean, for God's sake. I mean, we've all had people we desire and we wait for, but my God, it's been, what, 15 years now?
People love to hear the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, who drank the coffee? I know you didn't. Right?
I know. I'm sorry.
Was
about
there
the
coffee?
I drank a lot of coffee.
She drank coffee. She didn't drink coffee. And I will apologize about the olive thing, because I didn't know you didn't like olives. And like, I drink martinis with olives, and there were, for some reason, there was scene after scene after scene of like Lorelai going, when she would go over and say, I'll have a
I
martini
forgot
with
about that.
olives. And I don't know, it was like, like a lot of time had passed where I noticed that Lauren was like, you know, it would just put it down, and Lauren's like, I hate olives. And I'm like, I could have just written it with a twist or something, but like, we were so established at that time with olives. It was just very funny.
But there was like a lot of food in the show too.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
There's
Yeah.
always craft services, but in the show itself, food was a character. At
We
times.
had a lot of spit buckets. Because we would do many takes, and part of the comfort of the show is like, we're having Chinese food night, or you know, Cheeto night, or whatever, and
Pop-Tarts,
and Pop-Tarts, and
It really bothers me when actors don't eat the food that's in
Yeah.
the scene. Like they're supposed to be having a meal, but they
Yeah.
like don't eat it. So we would go for it most of the
And
time.
then we
Well,
would
wait,
feel
no, but
later.
she said you just had a spit bucket.
I'm saying both. I'm saying in the beginning, before we knew kind of like what we were dealing with, and that we were going to be doing
A lot.
many takes, we dug in, and then you're ill by like the end of the scene. So,
Yeah.
both, and so yeah.
I would
So
take
the
food
behind
home.
the scenes was spit buckets, but initially we ate.
I would come back and get the cookies and take them home.
Yeah, and Jared
People would
just ate
laugh.
whatever he wants.
They'd be like, "Are you working today?" I'd be like, "No, but this is the cookie day." So I'd come and get all the cookies. I swear on my life. I'd walk away with cookie platters, pizza. I would take
Yeah.
food home.
Yeah.
I was such like, I
That's
didn't know
such
what to do, so I would take
Good.
food home.
Order.
Like the pizza is
Glad
like,
it
hey,
went to good
anybody
use.
else? Like, here, have them. I remember Chuck and Tree, like,
Yeah.
yeah, you need some.
You obviously had a spit bucket or something.
No, I
Oh, he's
Okay.
just
just kept growing.
He was young.
80
I
feet
was-
tall.
yeah.
Jared grew about 14 inches in the first 2 months of being on the show. That was like, and it just became like, because it would be Rory and then Jared and then it would be Rory and like the apple box. And it was like the growing
From
of
all
Jared.
the free food.
Yeah, from all that free food.
I wish Milo
You weren't
was
fed
here.
as a child, were you?
What's that?
You weren't fed as a child.
I did go through little fat phases, but I would usually grow out of them. But I remember Milo, when we would have to do like Jess and Dean stuff, Milo would be like, hey, will you spread your legs apart or something? Because I'm so much taller.
Yeah.
And Milo's a really fit guy.
That's why. I see.
No, that's the Showtime version. No, so we would do stuff just because I'm kind of egregiously tall.
But you wouldn't stop growing.
I
like
know.
every year
I
he'd
didn't
come
turn
back,
until-
and then like
I tried to talk to him.
He
wouldn't.
did. Yeah, he
it
pulled me
was just
aside.
Like, what?
Like,
Oh God!
Yeah.
It was just
it was probably the free food.
handsome and tall.
I'll get out of here.
Your fans are fanatical. right? Are you seeing it here already?
Yeah.
Hashtag Gilmore Girls reunion on Twitter right now is ridiculous.
Really?
Yeah. So what is the craziest thing that happened to you guys with fans? And I mean, I don't want to get into like really creepy stuff, but like, you know, just like.
Well, if you don't want to know the creepy stuff.
I mean, I do, but.
I almost was knocked over in an airport once because a woman came from the side and hugged me so hard. And it really surprised me. There's just a lot of affection out there.
I think it's the only hard thing is you want to give people something in proportion to what they're giving you. I guess that's the show. The show does that, but in a moment in time in the airport or wherever, when someone's like, you see that it, you know, they're trying to communicate this beautiful gesture, and it's just hard to sort of be like, thank you. But then no, thank you. You know, I've had some really sweet things happen with, like, I was at a restaurant one time and these girls, I was facing the window and they just kind of did a show for me. They were doing like funny walks and like just trying to get me to laugh, and like, you know, there's something so just lovely, especially when it hits a teen, you know, and it gives them something fun, because I definitely had my ups and downs during those years. So to have girls, you know, look up to a character like Rory and, you know, have some happiness from it is, I think, better than the zombie stuff they're watching today. So,
And these kids today.
The fans who started the book clubs are amazing. There are a few who have read every book that we mentioned on the show.
Oh yeah,
which is quite a feat. Great. And then there are book clubs of people who just started it, like, I guess because of the show, but then they'll read any assortment.
There's Gilmore Guys podcast that goes
through
every single
Yes, it's longer and longer. Now it's Bruce.
A lot of Joyce and Prince.
Yeah, just a lot of people going, oh my God.
Guys come up to me, I mean, and they go, I used to hate you. I used to watch football with my buddies, but my wife got me into this show, and you know what? It's fantastic.
What is with the disclaimer? There are so many guys who are like, oh, I mean, my girlfriend made me. I'm like, it's
exactly.
okay. You can just watch it.
I didn't want to watch it.
They didn't want to watch it, but I love it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
You kind of made an interesting point, I thought, about like people come up to you, want to give you something, you don't know how to react to that, because they're so, you know, it meant so much to them.
Yeah.
And how do you?
I can only say thank you and feel really proud, you know.
And do you all realize that you have a whole new generation of fans? They are 15.
It didn't hit me until I did a show in New York, and I'd come out of the door at the end of the night, and suddenly everybody was young, and that was just regular reruns, you know. And I thought, oh, I'm someone's Laverne and Shirley or whatever, which, you know, for me was like a show, or Brady Bunch or something I watched in reruns. And now the way the world has changed, who could have predicted? When we started, nobody had a camera on their phone, you know.
Yeah, that's the
Things are different.
downside. But the whole Netflix, you live on forever, you know, to a whole new generation. This is to appease the super fans out there. Ready?
Oh.
Luke and
Everyone's having anxiety.
Luke and Lorelai, or Lorelai and Christopher?
Oh, good Lord. Luke and Lorelai, are you
This
kidding
is
me?
confusing.
Lightning round.
It's Luke and Lorelai.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so this is probably one of the most heated debates online. There are multiple BuzzFeed quizzes about it, so maybe a hand vote first. Team Dean, Team Jess, Team Logan. Team Dean. Team Dean, hands up.
I'll do Team Dean. No, I would.
Team Jess?
I'm Team Jess.
Jess was troubled.
I
I mean, we're talking now or then? I mean, where is he now?
I know, that's the
this is
tricky
too
thing.
impossible. I mean, these people are real for us, so it's very hard to pick someone. I think Logan was why am I answering this? This is your question. I think Logan seemed like the most mature guy, and then he became a lawyer on CBS. So I think he was probably doing really well.
I think she'd be seeing someone new. or she'd be single and focused on her career.
Oh
That's
my
really
God,
what
that's
I
the
think.
best answer ever.
Would she be married now? Would she still be
I don't think she'd be
reporting? Would she be on the Today Show maybe?
She'd definitely be a journalist, and she'd be, working really hard, and she'd either be in a new relationship or she'd be single.
You don't think she'd be married?
I don't think she'd be married. I don't know why. I don't think she'd be married.
What did you take from the set?
Oh, everything I get my hands on. All the hats. I took some menus. I think I tried to get a chair and a table out of there, but I got
Did you
caught.
keep the caps?
Yeah, I have them. I have all of them.
What'd
Do you
take?
really?
I do actually.
In a museum behind
In a
glass?
safe.
Lauren,
Glass
what'd you
can
take?
break.
What'd you take?
I took a Prada coat that they're probably still missing in inventory, and then I was given by Patricia the Hear No Evil, See No Evil, Speak No Evil monkey lamp.
Hilarious.
And she said, I knew you'd want this. And
Wow.
I said,
That's
thank
weird.
you. And it's in my garage because I didn't know that I wanted it. I don't know why it was significant and I don't know what to do with it, but I have it. I haven't thrown it out.
Don't sell it on eBay.
I will now. Not Today's Show.
What did you take, Alexis?
I think the costume designer gave me some clothing and some
gave it
jewelry
to
and
you.
things.
Is there any special tchotchke or
She was
something?
like, "You're gonna
that-
want these." Like at the end of the show,
There's some really good clothes on that show.
there were
Some
good
crazy,
clothes.
wacky outfits, but some really good clothes.
Yes.
Took the flowers back to
yeah.
my apartment. Loved the flowers.
I took the cookies, I took a menu, and I took there are a lot of books to go on sets, and there was a first edition From Russia with Love by Ian Fleming. It didn't have the book jacket, but I saw it and I was a James Bond fan, and it was so it's probably I probably stole something valuable, huh? So
Wait, I do
still
have a
Nice.
clapper. I have
have a clapper.
I have a, what are these called?
Oh,
Yeah,
those
the
are
clapper.
great.
Is it called a clapper? That has Gilmore Girls on it. I
Oh,
took
that's
that.
great.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
I have the Stars Hollow sign.
Oh.
It's hanging in my Brooklyn place. But Peter Roth sent it to me. In all fairness, like I wouldn't have been able to steal it because it was about 3 tons and planted in the ground, and it would have looked quite awkward me trying to drag it off. But he sent it to me, and it was like at the time it was like it just kind of showed up, and it's very large and very, very heavy, and we didn't quite know what to do with it. But now when it's up literally on a wall in Brooklyn. Yeah, Stars Hollow.
Cool.
I think nobody wants to think that you want to be defined by a character, because then, obviously you're actresses and actors and you want to go on to other things, but has this defined your career in some ways that you would be willing to own up to? I'm going to go to you first.
Of course, it's defined my career in that it gave me every single opportunity I've had since then, and I, and you always question. I mean, when parenthood came up, I thought, really, of all the things, she's a single mom, but you kind of can't think about it. It's like I definitely, with this amount of perspective too, you just feel so thankful. And again, with the way the world works now, where more and more and more people can continue to find something that you try to entertain them with, I should be so lucky to be defined by this show.
Alexis, you've gone on to other things, but it must be what everyone talks to you about the most.
It's certainly one of the things that people come up to me about the most, and I feel similarly. It just gave me every opportunity I've had since, because it was really my first job. So,
You can't predict
just-
how something's going to take hold of the sort of opinion of the.
Yeah, how people will react
Yeah.
or how fans will feel. I mean, they certainly do sort of feel attached to certain characters more than others. So this is definitely one of those.
I can't imagine that going in, when you said you pitched it on basically a fluke with very little behind the depth-wise from the beginning.
Yeah,
to this.
and we premiered on Thursday nights opposite Friends and Survivor. That's right. When they moved Survivor to take on Friends, that's when we premiered. Then we survived that. We survived. Screw anyone else who was on Survivor. We survived Survivor. And then they moved us to Tuesday nights, which was like great. And then they put on American Idol. So no, I actually never expected, it to become more than it was. I've always said, sometimes you get one in a career. Sometimes you just get one. It doesn't mean that your other projects are not good or that you didn't love them as much or put as much work into them, but sometimes you get one, and I knew that this was the one. And if I never did anything that topped it or came near it, that was pretty great, because some people never get that. Some people work their whole lives in this business and they don't have that. They can't say, I got it out there and I got to do it right. And it was a gift. This cast is a gift. You know, I'm very, very lucky. I know how lucky I am. You know, good Lord, what? I just, I never expected it, but I'll take it. I'll run with it. I'll own it.
The legions of devoted fans. I mean, they're hopeful. They're hopeful.
That the
I
world
don't
will
have to say
continue.
that.
I'm hopeful too.
They would like to see something in some form with this group and these relationships and this.
Well, we're doing a panel tonight. What? They want more than that? We're gonna.
Want more than
We
that.
might get cocktails afterwards.
Is there interest? Are there discussions? Is it possible? Is it off the table? Would you guys do it? That's a fraught question. I get
Whatever
it.
it is.
I think there's willingness and there's nothing standing in our way. For me, it is one, not that I have 7 other things to compare it to, but this in particular, because Amy wasn't with us the last year, not that it wasn't a good season, but there was a feeling of this is incomplete. And we didn't know when we shot the last episode that it was the last episode. I got a call at a restaurant a couple weeks later. And so there is creative justification to finish this story in a different way. Will we get to do it? There are a million other people who make those decisions, but there's for sure willingness.
That's a non-committal smile.
I'm all in. I mean, absolutely all in.
If it can work, I guess I'm taking away here if
Yeah,
the
no
conditions, if the stars align.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
If the stars hollow align.
Which is a big if,
The
right?
stars aren't hollow. Yes.
You look, again, like Lauren said, we don't own. I don't own the show. I own it in like it's my show, but it's like I don't own it. I can't go out and do whatever I want with it. So, who knows? Who knows? It would have to be the right circumstances. It would have to be like the right creative circumstances. I don't know that we would just want to we all love each other. We can all go to dinner, so we don't need to get back together again unless it's correct.
Well, you want to honor this
Yeah.
story. You don't want to, especially after all these years of people hoping they get to see some resolution. That's a big expectation, and you don't want to do it in any way but the best way.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.